So, a few months back, there was a craze about plasmoids. Everyone was seeing these things in the sky, and the biggest question was, are they conscious or not? It took the country by storm, and the weirdest part about it was, is this a government psyop? Is this something spiritual? And instead of getting sucked up in the news by all these stories, I decided to do research and a presentation on what really are plasmoids, are they conscious, and what does it have to do with the future of humanity? I'm writing a book on plasma and consciousness and the new human potential movement. It is all I study. I am after truth, not fanaticism, but if it's magical, great. And my findings were pretty damn cool, which I'm going to show you in a presentation. This is 10 minutes long. Go to my YouTube if you're watching this for the whole presentation, or my TikTok. So, these UAP plasmoids in the sky people have been seeing, could they be conscious? So, plasmoid UAPs specifically are plasma-like entities. Some videos are real, some are fake, but you know that people have seen them. I get messages all the time. It's a very real phenomenon. They are characterized by self-illumination, purposeful movement, sudden acceleration, abrupt directional changes, and a lack of conventional signatures, such as heat trails, which challenges our current understanding of physics and aerospace engineering. Their movements are intelligent, which begs the central question, could these UAP plasmoids be conscious or vehicles for consciousness? Haha. So my hypothesis is that plasma, the fourth state of matter, which I will get into, may act as the perfect vehicle or host for consciousness, which links the physical to the metaphysical. Plasma is the ultimate bridge of science and spirituality, and it is incredible. We are just figuring this out. My goal in this presentation was to explore scientific and theoretical foundation supporting this hypothesis. We're on a new frontier here. So the age-old question, what the heck is plasma? Plasma in science is referred to as the fourth state of matter. There's solid, liquid, gas, and then a plasma, which is an ionized gas. It has roughly equal numbers of free electrons and positively charged ions. This is what sometimes gives it its fluorescent glow, like in the aurora borealis or lightning or neon signs, which are all plasma. State where a gas becomes ion, it results in a medium that is highly electrically conductive. I also believe that plasma is not just a state of matter, it is basically a behavior of all solid, liquid, and gases. And it really, it's certain behaviors that are defined within all states of matter because I think everything is made of plasma. A finer plasma than what science can currently test, which is what I'm writing about. But I think it will be proven very soon. I think it is the fabric of reality. And I think that consciousness, of which I'll get into, I'm getting ahead of myself, but evolved consciousness knows how to harness, to harmonize with this plasma and make, dense pockets of it like plasmoids to come and remote view us. Okay, back to scheduled programming. I always get ahead of myself. Plasma also has something called self-organization. It exhibits dynamic coherent structures like filaments and plasmoids. Electromagnetic interaction is another highlight of plasma. It is strongly affected by electromagnetic waves. What has the biggest electromagnetic wave? Our heart. That's for a later date. It's all love. But this also enables behaviors like something called magnetic reconnection and wave propagation. And we'll get into why that matters. Plasma is also the most abundant state of matter in the universe, making up the stars, ball lightning, aurora borealis, and nebulas, and so on and so forth. There's also something called dusty plasma. So dusty plasma is a type of plasma containing micrometer-sized dust particles that become charged and interact with the surrounding ions and electrons. These interactions cause the dust particles to self-organize into dynamic structures, such as lattices or crystals exhibiting behaviors like waves and clustering. It is found in interstellar clouds, comet tails, and planetary rings. I also believe it is considered a type of cold plasma, unlike our sun, which is a hot plasma. These dusty plasmas can form clouds like the Kordylewski clouds. The Kordylewski clouds are two clouds between the moon and the earth, and they are thought by some to actually exhibit intelligence, almost like a supercomputer. Its interior structures are more complex than an organic body, and self-organization can spontaneously develop. Plasmoids are linked to dusty complex plasma. Plasmoids can form within dusty complex plasma environments. These plasmoids in these environments had very complex behaviors, such as merging and splitting, almost like they had minds of their own, or families. They were like families. So plasmoids are structured plasma. Plasmoids can be made in a lab. They also occur naturally, usually by a process called magnetic reconnection. So plasmoids with this intelligent behavior of self-organization, of moving very fast and forming coherent structures, these behaviors are similar to properties required for consciousness, or as a medium interacting with external forces, such as space-time geometry or quantum phenomena. William Bostick, a plasma physicist, experimented on plasmoids and figured out that they were shaped and stabilized by magnetic fields, supporting the idea that advanced plasmoids could serve as vehicles for consciousness. Basically, if certain conditions are met, like temperature, weak turbulence, these magnetic structures might help preserve coherence by isolating quantum subsystems, such as trapped electrons or excitons. I know it's pronounced differently than excitons, but we're going to go with it. What does this all mean? The emergence of self-organized plasmoids within dusty complex plasma networks suggests that structured electromagnetic and charge dynamics can stabilize coherent interactions over extended timescales, potentially reducing decoherence and creating conditions favorable for quantum coherence within plasma systems. These are really messed up photos, but basically this one, plasmoids are making purposeful behavior. And I'm just theorizing here, they're carrying consciousness or something in the centers. Sometimes it's like 3 dots. Okay, I have to speed this up because I have like way more, 100 million pages. Okay, basically there was a study in 1983 by Stuart Hameroff and his partner Watt, where they did Kirlian photography. And basically, long story short, plasma reacted the same way as consciousness did. The anesthesia. So basically, the higher the anesthetic was, the less plasma they had. They called it a corona discharge, but it was a plasma. What is so interesting here is I obviously found from this, in my opinion, inhibiting plasma in some way may also affect consciousness, which led me to think. Well, I already was thinking, but which led me to think again. Is plasma a foundational key for the ability to support consciousness? And could plasmoids, as larger scale coherent plasma structures, similarly interact or even hold consciousness? If plasma effects at the quantum level influence consciousness per Orch-OR theory, which is Stuart Hameroff's theory, then plasmoids may represent a macro scale manifestation of this plasma consciousness synergy, which is what I call it. And one maybe future use of plasma consciousness synergy is higher beings of consciousness, more evolved beings of consciousness, using these plasmas to remote view us. Or you can call it to bilocate, where a piece of their consciousness is seeing us, so, they're safe wherever they are. I'm sold on that. Are all plasmoids conscious? No. Not all plasmoids interact with space-time geometry. So per Orch-OR theory, they're not all conscious. It also makes sense because something like a ball lightning, I'm not saying that's exactly a plasmoid, but that does not have very intelligent behavior that's conscious, at least. It's more like a lion plasma. Plasma is sentient, it is self-organizing, it is responsive, but plasma's not conscious. Consciousness means self-awareness, decision-making. It is a deeper quantum process. But for the plasmoids that interact with space-time geometry, this could enable their propulsion and movement without heat trails, matching the UAP behavior. Other specific conditions would have to be met, such as temperature and unknown factors, for consciousness to emerge or be held in plasma. But I think that is one of the key factors. Sentient plasmoids that are not conscious could still have purposeful movement. That is sentient. It is reflective based on electromagnetic fields. And if some are holding consciousness, it could explain why some of them seem to be making decisions, like flying all over the goddamn place. The difference basically is awareness, steering the ship. There is a part 2 to this. I have like 10 other slides to show you. So just comment part 2. If you're watching this on YouTube, then part 2 is coming right now because it is the same video. Also, this is just a brief little break. Go check the link in my bio. Feel free to sign up for my book, A New Force. It is out summer 2025, and it is about plasma, consciousness, and the new human potential. This is one very small subject of the myriad of subjects I talk about with the magic of plasma, and it is truly magic. We are at the forefront of exciting, exciting times with plasma. Okay, so let's get into these plasmoids, these shining lights in the sky that everyone has been seeing more so recently. Are they conscious? Are they beings of consciousness remote viewing us? Where have these shown up in mythology before? What does this mean for the future of human potential and consciousness? Let's get into it. Okay, so let's go back to this. There are two forms of plasmoids that I have identified. There is a theory coined by Stuart Hameroff and Roger Penrose called Orch-OR theory. It is basically a theory of consciousness. To sum it up, they think that consciousness arises from quantum computations in the brain, specifically in something called a microtubule inside brain neurons, which are connected to fundamental space-time geometry of the universe. Therefore, if something is not connecting with space-time geometry, it cannot be conscious in their theory. I decided to follow his theory because it gave me a nice playground to play in while talking about plasmoids. Or their theory, apologies. So per Orch-OR theory, not all plasmoids interact with space-time geometry. They all exhibit sentient-like behaviors like self-organization, responsiveness to electromagnetic fields. Of course, they are plasma-like, the fourth state of matter that is very sensitive to electromagnetic fields. But also some plasmoids, as you've probably seen in viral videos, some are a lot of fake, but some are real. These plasmoids, these balls of light in the sky, a lot they're seen over like fields or the beach. They exhibit behaviors of intentionality, of awareness, of consciousness that might be enabled by processes akin to those hypothesized in Orch-OR theory by interacting with space-time geometry. So there are sentient plasmoids and conscious plasmoids. I'm not saying they're conscious, they might hold consciousness, or they're conscious, we'll get into it. The difference in behaviors is basically these are reactive to stimuli and self-organize. In conscious plasmoids, they're intentional action, decision-making, and adaptability. The mechanism, the plasma dynamics are magnetic fields and magnetic reconnection. In conscious plasmoids, quantum processes interacting with space-time geometry per Orch-OR theory. It is not required to interact with that if it is a sentient plasmoid, but it is essential if it is conscious. An example of a sentient plasmoid would be a dusty plasma forming patterns, plasmoids with purposeful motion due to natural forces. If it was a conscious plasmoid, like a UAP, it would exhibit non-random intentional behaviors, such as responding to observers, which we have seen it do once again in viral videos. And I think we basically know what consciousness is in basic terms. It is, they're self-aware, having a subjective experience, while a sentient plasmoid lacks basic awareness. Okay, this is the most brainiac part of the whole thing, so stay with me. Something called magnetic reconnection creates plasmoids, which can interact with external forces like space-time curvature. Also, with quantum gravity, there are theoretical models I have looked into, like the Russian Physics Journal, inside the journal, that suggest that something called pinch plasmoids act as unclosed wormholes with two throats in 4- space-time. Basis of exact solutions of the non-stationary, spherically symmetric Einstein-Maxwell equations. What is that? Basically, a pinch plasmoid is a plasma structure that forms when magnetic fields pinch together. So that would explain the unclosed wormhole. It's kind of like a tunnel in space-time. It does not fully close, like it's pinched open. And these wormholes are described as having two throats, two entry and two exit points that exist within a 4-dimensional space-time, usual 3 spatial dimensions plus the 1 dimension of time. These ideas come from the solutions of the Einstein-Maxwell equations, which are basically mathematical formulas combining Einstein's theory of gravity, general relativity, with Maxwell's theories of electromagnetism. If this is true, it means that plasmoids, as dense plasma structures, might not just be physical phenomena, they can act as bridges or tunnels through space-time. That is the payoff. This would explain how plasma interacts with space-time, which would offer new insights into the nature of gravity in space-time itself, and also plasma, because it would explain why these higher conscious, evolved conscious beings are using plasma to remote view us. They're almost like these wormholes they're looking through, or maybe coming through and actually visiting us. That I don't know, but it's interesting if you stayed with me there. So this may serve as a gateway for understanding how plasma interacts with space-time, like I just said. Also, quantum coherence in plasma. This is very important. Experiments in quantum plasmonics show coherence in plasma systems, combining light and matter at the nanoscale, supporting the idea that plasmoids may operate at the quantum level. This is exactly how they think that the microtubules in the brain are thought to interact with space-time geometry per Orch-OR theory, suggesting that this is a universal process at micro and macro scales. Basically, to sum this up, plasma can behave in a coordinated and unified way in a single quantum system. This means that plasmoids do not just act like these hot chaotic blobs of ionized gas, but they could also act like coherent quantum objects, linking light and matter in a unified, structured way. These are all just my speculations, but all right, almost for the fun stuff. So, plasmoids as vehicles for consciousness. Plasmoids could host consciousness as a substrate similar to plasma supporting electromagnetic phenomena. If plasma exhibits quantum coherence and interacts with space-time geometry, plasmoids could serve as vehicles or conduits for consciousness. UAPs, described as plasma-like objects, may leverage these properties, quantum coherence, for propulsion and communication, potentially carrying or responding to consciousness. And I just like these two photos and how they look alike. If I didn't know any better, I would think our brain and heart are plasma computers, carrying our consciousness. Okay, so these archetypes may reflect ancient encounters with plasma consciousness phenomena. One is obviously the Sumerian tablet, where this is eerily similar looking to a plasma globe. He is also holding something that looks like the power of the horizon or the in-between or this liminal space, which plasma is known for being. And yeah, it's just astonishing how those look. I think plasma is magic. It's fine. So speaking of magic and ancient technologies, chariots of the gods. So across all cultures and religions, we see gods or consciousness, gods could symbolize consciousness, riding plasma-like chariots or sentient vehicles such as animals, beasts, consciousness riding plasma. The proof is in the mythological pudding. This whole time, I don't think we realized how literal these were. But when you think of consciousness as the gods and plasma as these sentient beasts or this, divine feminine substance that is molded by consciousness and how people used to think you had to control it, it starts making sense. But I get more into my book why now that we're evolving, our consciousness is evolving, it's important to learn how to harmonize with it, not control it. That is a very archaic view of it. Ezekiel's wheel, plasma-like vehicles carrying divine beings. Wherever the spirit would go, they went, and the wheels rose along with them. The spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. I'll let that simmer. Oh, and the eye? Could that be awareness or consciousness? Hermes, messenger of the gods. Birkeland currents, plasma filaments. Hermes was associated with rapid multidimensional travel, marrying plasmoid dynamics. He symbolized the connection between heaven and earth. And his scepter looked like a Birkeland current. Also, one of my favorites, Hindu Vimanas, described as flying vehicles for divine beings, potentially linked to plasma-based phenomena. I'm going to butcher this, but the Pushpaka Vimana that resembles the sun and belongs to my brother was brought by the powerful Ravana. That aerial and excellent Vimana going everywhere at will. That chariot resembling a bright cloud in the sky, and the king Rama got in, and the excellent chariot at the command of the Ragira rose up into a higher atmosphere. Intelligent fire, the burning bush. It literally symbolized intelligent fire as it exhibits supernatural behavior, burning without consuming. The bush, which defines natural laws, serves as a medium for communication, speaking to Moses with intentionality and purpose, representing divine consciousness, communicating through this divine fire or plasma. This, to me, hints that plasma is an intelligent medium capable of carrying or manifesting higher consciousness through it. Maybe, as like a microphone, like they're literally doing in military experiments now. In closing, plasmoids could represent advanced uses of plasma as vehicles for consciousness or even conscious beings themselves. I think it's the latter, or the former, whatever that one is. And some are obviously just sentient forces of nature. Now, who or what are controlling these plasmoids, and how might humanity learn to work with what I call plasma consciousness synergy for transformational purposes? This is what I discuss in my book.